The psychology of aggression. What is aggression? Aggression is defined as behaviors that have the intention to hurt someone, whether you feel anything or not, according to Anderson and Bushman 2002. It is carried out with the intended and immediate intent to cause harm on someone else. I stated whether you feel anything or not, since that includes socio or psychopathy, as they do aggressive behaviors without feeling anything. What is violence? Violence is defined as the extreme form of harm as the goal, either leading to severe injury or death. One thing to note is that all violence is aggression, but not vice versa. What about anger? Also to clarify, anger is not aggression, since aggression is something that people do. It's a behavior, while anger is just an emotion, to which you can feel without necessarily doing anything. Now, I'll go through the different psychological theories regarding aggression. So according to the animal behavior perspective, aggression needs to be considered through the lens of animal research. For instance, there are notable gender differences whereby males tend to be more aggressive than females, thus more likely to attack and fight, leading to violence for territory, resources, and mates. Konrad Lorenz proposed his hydraulic theory of aggression, whereby aggression is believed to be instinctual, not caused by the environment, but instead to be released out in certain circumstances. Instinctual aggression builds up and needs to be released, similar to a steam engine building up too much pressure. In reality, aggression in animals and humans are more complex than just the hydraulic theory, as I'll show in the future. Similarly, evolutionary psychologists believe aggression is hardwired, being used to define territory, resources, and mates, which I've mentioned prior. Higley in 1994 found that primates learn to express and inhibit aggression to reveal submission and dominance in their hierarchies. They may steal resources of others, defend against attack, intimidate male competition, and deter rivals and infidelity. There are, however, problems with using animal research to generalize to humans, since the animals are not humans, and this takes away from the explanatory power of the complex dynamics involved. In addition, the clinical and health psychology perspectives propose that aggression is a symptom of a mental disorder, indicating poor mental health. The DSM-V stated that aggression could result from personality disorders such as being antisocial, sociopathic or psychopathic, narcissistic, or having borderline paranoid personality disorder. Aggression could also come about from conduct disorders in children, addiction to alcohol or other drugs, having paranoia, psychosis, delusions, or being sadistic or masochistic. The solutions to aggression here is through conflict or anger management, counseling, and other interventions. Moreover, cognitive psychologists believe aggression derives from neural networks and information processes in the brain that link in aggressive behavior with a trigger. When the brain thinks, it is linked with other similarly significant concepts, creating neural networks that fire together. And as a result, these become strongly wired together. Exposure to aggression and violence increases the number of linked concepts or nodes and the strength of the connections. This makes it harder to manage individuals who are predisposed to aggression. Cognitive neo-aggression theories bring together cognitions, feelings, and behaviors, as well as the fight and flight response into what we see as aggression. In 1986, Huesmann, proposed his script theory of aggression, which stated that individuals who saw the same script play out became triggered and acted out the script. These scripts are processes in the brain that happen subconsciously, in mere milliseconds, following the scripts to a T until its eventual conclusion. These scripts play out every time, triggered by the same thing, such as in domestic violence, for example. Moving along, developmental psychologists who rely on longitudinal studies state that aggression develops over the lifespan. They measure the constancy of trait aggression across the lifespan, and it was found that kids who are aggressive tend to maintain being more aggressive over time. Ages 2 to 3 is when an individual is most aggressive, since toddlers don't have sophisticated language skills and act out their aggression. Developmental psychologists focus on gene-environment interactions and believe aggression comes about from the influence of parents, peers, media, and the environment. Emotion psychologists such as Novaco and Eddie Harmon-Jones believe it is good to express anger in a healthy way, which is kind of similar to the hydraulic theory I've mentioned prior. Also, it was found that shameful people are more aggressive since humiliation and aggression are linked. Jealousy and aggression are also linked. Dollard et al. 1938 proposed the frustration and aggression hypothesis, which was the first aggression-specific theory. It was based on Freud's ideas about frustration when unable to pursue pleasure, which leads to aggression. These theorists believed all aggression resulted from frustration, which is not necessarily true. This theory was reworked by Berkowitz 1989. Additionally, learning theories co-opted classical and operant conditioning as responsible for learning how to be aggressive in order to gain a desired outcome. Albert Bandura in his infamous Bobo experiment found that aggression can be learned via social modeling. Now moving along, biopsychology stated that aggression is due to genetics, epigenetics, and differences in brain chemistry and structure. For instance, there are polymorphisms whereby the promoter of MAOA gene is linked with psychopathy and comes about due to child maltreatment, which is brought about from family abuse. If there is sufficient love that is shown consistently, then the psychopathy won't develop. So as in, you can see that these genes, they can increase the risk of developing a mental disorder, but they don't necessarily imply that individuals have the mental disorder, because it depends on the aforementioned gene-environment correlation. Also, it was found that not having enough serotonin is linked with aggression, since it becomes difficult to manage impulses. Testosterone is correlated with aggression. However, this has a low effect. Having damaged frontal lobes are also correlated with more aggression, such as, for example, footy players becoming more aggressive and uninhibited. Other damaged regions correlated with aggression, including the orbitofrontal cortex, anterior cingulate cortex, and the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. Also, Huesmann in 2006 found that people who were more aggressive tend to have lower arousal, lower resting heart rate, and under-arousal of the central nervous system. Zielman proposed that there existed an excitation transfer, whereby Schrader and Singer in 1962 injected adrenaline into individuals and found that they felt happier when there was a happy person around, or they felt agitated when there was an agitated person around. it was clear that labeling was found to be very important in explaining what causes their excess arousal. Now jumping over into psychoanalysis. Freud believed that aggression came from the thanatos, or a death wish, which he stated was an innate aggressive drive in every person. This idea was unproven since humans and more intelligent animals can control their aggression. Other personality psychologists believe that people with certain traits were more aggressive. For instance, aggressive people were more likely to have low agreeableness, low conscientiousness, high neuroticism, and low extroversion. Lee and Ashton in 2004 found that aggressive people were also more likely to have low humility and low honesty. This was measured by the Hexaco personality measure. Furthermore, relationship psychologists believe aggression came about from conflict between people, which is kind of stating the obvious. Similarly, social psychologists Tedeschi and Felsen in 1994 proposed the social interaction theory, whereby aggression was a way of achieving goals such as in obtaining something of value, getting revenge, and putting forward a desired image of oneself, such as looking either competent or tough. So in conclusion, and as a result of all of these different psychological theories, Craig Anderson and Brad Bushman in 2002 aimed to sum up these different theories, and they proposed the general aggression model, or GAM, which stated that aggression comes about from the nature of the situation, which brings about a trigger, and depending on one's beliefs, memories, personal factors, etc., would increase the individual's readiness to aggress in the situation. This readiness to aggress depends on the person's arousal, thoughts, feelings, and history of being aggressive in the past. It is derived by personal factors such as personality, genetic predisposition, gender, temperament, cognition, etc., and also it is dependent on situational factors like triggers, whether the individual is in current pain, drugs, frustration, and provocation. These bring about an immediate appraisal of the situation to decide to respond immediately or not, and which may lead to the coming about of the impulsive aggressive action. One must also consider if they have access to resources, such as enough time or cognitive capacity. Then there is a reappraisal, which is the ability to think through one's actions. But yeah, this general theory of aggression comes about in a loop in which the individual, when experiencing the same triggers again, remember how they have reacted in the past. And usually, if they've reacted aggressively in the past, they're more likely to react the same way in the future because of, that's operant conditioning then. So yeah, thanks for watching. I hope you know more about aggression.